Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central. And here's your host, Bob Hickey.
And welcome to another episode of Foxborough Central. I am Bob Hickey, your host, and I thank you for taking the time to join with me and my guest as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough truly the gem of Norfolk County. This is one of the special election series we have here at Foxborough Central. We are honored to be joined by a candidate for our state Senate seat representing the Bristol. What is the name of our district?
It's the Bristol-Norfolk District.
The Bristol-Norfolk District. Jacob Ventura. Jacob, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, thank you.
Welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to have you here. We are coming up on the election day, and election is November 6th, by the way, Tuesday, November 6th. Polls open at the Ahern Middle School at 7 a.m., and they will be open for 13 hours until 8 p.m. that night. Leading up to election day, it's always the desire to get information out there, and you are running for the full 2-year term to be our state senator.
That's right.
Why do you want to do that?
You know, I have always been involved in public service. I had a 3-year career stint at the State House with a local state representative, and learned firsthand the importance of service and the importance that the state legislature can have on local communities at a local level.
So you have experience up on Beacon Hill.
I do.
And being on the staff is such a learning opportunity, but also a great networking opportunity to really see how it works. So when you go in there, it's as if you're already in there on the ground running. So
That's right. And you know, especially, I'm glad you mentioned that. In 2018, with the polarization of our political parties on a national level, it's nice here in Massachusetts. People get to work together. I'm a registered Republican. You know, an ally with Governor Baker, but my years in the legislature as a staff member afforded me an opportunity to reach across the aisle, and most of my friends on Beacon Hill are Democrats, so I think that helps in terms of trying to get legislation moved forward and funding for your district. So,
And it's interesting you say that, because the role, my daughter, who is a political science major, she had been on the as an intern for both Senator Timilty as well as Representative Jay Barrows.
Okay.
And so she got to see both the Democratic and the Republican side, and she would come home and talk about the differences, but at the same time, the work that she was doing was the same, and it was important to do that. So
Right.
Good for you for being there and wanting to go back up. So what's your primary motivator of going out? There's always, I always say, 3 things we want to accomplish with our day. So what are your top 3 things that you want to accomplish up on Beacon Hill as our state senator?
Sure, yeah. Number one is to make sure state government is working well for everybody, every citizen in the Commonwealth. And you know, my job as the senator would be to represent this district. So number one is local aid. Making sure that the state government is accountable to the taxpayers, and making sure we increase our local aid allotments to our cities and towns. I have 9 towns in this district, and you know, my goal as a senator would be to increase local aid for the town of Foxborough. That comes in the form of Chapter 70 and Chapter 90 funding for our roads and our schools.
Roads and schools,
Those are the 2 big ones. But we can't forget senior citizens, veterans, the disabled, and police and fire. So the nuts and bolts of local governing. And when I first got involved in public service, I was a finance committee member in my town. I think I was the youngest, and it was a crash course in municipal finance. So I understand the relationship that local government has with state government, and that important. So local aid is really the big thing, in making sure that our communities are stronger, and being an ally with the governor on that. So.
And I love to touch on that, because I love talking about people's experience, because we all get to wherever we are, our path of life, if you will.
Sure.
And everything seems to domino and bring up the next one. So I'm curious to know how we got to this point. I want to remind everybody at home, though, that we are speaking with Jacob Ventura. He is a candidate for state senate. You can reach out to him at www.jacobventura.com, see his entire platform, his FAQs and all that good information that we probably won't get to on this program because we're so limited with time. You can also follow him on his Twitter handle at Jacob Ventura. You can also be his friend on Facebook. It's Join Jacob 2018. I like that handle. That's nice. You can also reach out to my telephone. He's a good guy. We'll return your calls, 508-455-5690. 888-888-9696. Or my preferred method is just to email him at info@jacobventura.com, and he'll answer all your good questions. Maybe even answer some bad questions. How has the campaign trail been? Have you have your eyes been opened? Is it something that's a bit of a grind, or is it invigorating?
It's always different being the candidate. I had managed a few campaigns and again been a staff member on Beacon Hill, so it's always different being the candidate, but it's been very positive. Paul and I have both been running for this seat for almost 18 months now, between the special election and this election. And I joke with Paul that sometimes it feels like it's a presidential race, how long we've been campaigning. But I've been throughout Foxborough numerous times over the last year. I've knocked on thousands of doors, and I think that grassroots approach, it's tough, it's hard work, but that grassroots approach is, I think, the most effective way to be able to get your message to people, and more importantly, listen to the concerns of the people in the town. So, for example, here in Foxborough, we've had a few issues with the storms earlier this year. As the senator, my goal would be to work with utility companies to make sure that they're held more accountable for power outages. Trains are always a hot issue in this region.
Absolutely.
Commuter service, reservoir cleanup in town, and economic development along Route 1. So those are just a few of the issues.
Clearly, Foxborough.
Localized.
Those are some
Foxborough,
clear
but
touch points in here. Yes, absolutely. The reservoir, that's been a long-standing issue with contaminants, and how do you best address those instead of just sweeping them under the rug, as I say, because they can't be done. They're still going to be there. The regional transportation network sounds like you're looking to tackle that, and with the pilot project of Patriot Station, it's going to create some opportunities.
Sure.
So with that, Mr. Ventura, we're going to, I always ask this, and I love the question, how do we get here? Family, life, what got you to this point?
So I was...
what do you do?
I was born and raised in southeastern Massachusetts, in Dartmouth. Spent most of my upbringing there. I was a public school student. Was involved in the marching band, and went on to UMass Dartmouth for a degree in finance, worked in banking for a few years, and parlayed that into my experience at the State House. Up until recently, a few years ago, I had an opportunity to go to law school down in Virginia.
I was going to ask you, I think you're a practicing attorney? Or?
Yep, and so that was an interesting experience, but public service has always been a calling for me, and I think the combination of the practical State House experience with, the law and business, I think it's a good combination to have for the people of this district. And this district includes 3 of the most southern towns, and those are the towns that I actually had an opportunity to work for with State Rep Steve Howitt.
Okay.
And in that capacity, I've had a great opportunity to work with the state representative here, Jay Barrows, and Jim Timilty as well. So
Sure. Excellent. So your calling is to be up at the State House. You are you've taken time off, so you're doing this full time.
That's right.
You're completely motivated, and you're all in, as they say.
Yeah.
Excellent. So when we are here in Foxborough and we want to get a hold of you, what would be the most interesting thing that I could ask you that you'd have a great answer for?
The most interesting thing about me?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We're standing on the platform at the train station. We're in Mansfield because we don't have one in Foxborough yet, although we will someday soon.
Yeah.
And we're just hanging side by side. The wind is whipping. The train is 5 minutes late. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. Well, an interesting thing about me, I'm probably the only Republican in a whole family of Democrats. So I think that experience gives me, good training for the State House.
That's right.
I believe in respectful discourse and elevating our discourse in this country, bringing people together. Governor Baker has endorsed me, and I've endorsed him. I agree with his approach of bringing parties together. And I'm a member of the Wampanoag tribe, which I think is interesting. So I'd be the first Native American from a federally recognized tribe in the history of the Senate. And I'm also part Cape Verdean. So when elected in November, I'd be the highest ranking African American in the state, which I think is very interesting.
That is very interesting.
But those are just some asides.
That's really interesting, though. Okay, excellent. See, I ask a question, I don't know where it's going to go, and it turned out to be a great answer. Thank you so much. So we all have, low-hanging fruit that we can just grab as soon as we get into a new position. If you are elected, what is that first thing that you're going to try to accomplish?
Sure. I mean, the election is on November 6th. My schedule is to, on November 7th, the very next day, is to meet with the town administrators in each town. Those are the folks who have a pulse on everything, whether it's police chiefs, fire chiefs, senior citizens. It's really to get involved in the town level. You have time to craft legislation, and it's very important on how a legislator goes up to Beacon Hill and votes. But my experience, it's all about local issues. So these issues that I mentioned here in Foxborough, the 8 other municipalities, it's really about getting those meetings set up, meeting with the boards of selectmen, the school committees, the finance committees, and establishing those relationships. So, but again, local aid. Trying to find the priorities of each town, whether it's funding for a senior center, a new HVAC for a town hall, police funding. I have experience doing that, and that's what I'd like to do for the town. So.
I want to talk to you about that experience right now, but before I do that, I'm going to remind everybody that we're speaking with Jacob Ventura. He is the candidate running against the Democrat Paul Feeney. He is our Republican candidate for state senate. He can be reached at www.jacobventura.com. That's where all of his good information is. He's on Twitter. He's on Facebook. He has a telephone number, 508-455-5696, or you can email him your questions, or if you want to support him, give him some Facebook or some email love at info@jacobventura.com. So you mentioned before you on a finance committee. What town? Talk about it. I'm an old town government geek, so
okay.
I love talking town
so
politics.
I was born and raised in Dartmouth, New Bedford area, so I served on the Dartmouth Finance Committee, and it was I forget how, I was young. I was very young, probably the youngest ever in the town, and it was a town of probably 30,000 people, give or take. So it was a crash course in municipal finance, and learned.
Now, what time frame was this in?
This was probably, I was probably 19 or 20 years old. So.
I mean, what year?
Probably 2009 or 10.
Yeah, so that was just recovering from the one economic downturn, the global crossing scandal and all that, and then the dollar fell out in 2009 with the Lehman Brothers debacle, then the recovery hadn't happened. In 2012 we got hit again. So being on the finance committee had to have been a very, very challenging, because people are looking to you to give guidance and support and helping them to understand, all right, this is on the warrant, but what does it really mean?
Right. And
that's a big challenge.
I was also a finance major at the time, so good luck getting a job graduating during that time. I was fortunate to get a job up in Boston at JP Morgan.
Okay. Well, I'm an old State Streeter myself.
Okay,
so.
Yeah. So, but yeah, on the finance committee, it was a time where revenue growth was down, and so we had to stretch the dollar and make sure that government was running efficiently. That's the type of expertise that I think I can bring to the State House. The Commonwealth has a yearly budget. This year it's about $42 billion. There are areas in which I think we could still make further reforms. I would support the governor's policies on some of those, but if you can squeeze a dime or a nickel out of each dollar and pass those savings along to more spending priorities, in my case, I would, again, increase local aid. I think that's the goal. So.
Well, if it's a $40 billion budget, then a nickel is going to go a long way, because there's a lot of nickels there.
That's right.
Excellent. So we're running out of time. I always give you the last word before, as you think about that. I'm going to remind everybody that Jacob Ventura is running for your vote. Your support of our Republican candidate, Jacob Ventura, would be appreciated if you support him and his message and what he stands for. You should go to the polls on November 6th, and the vote is a Tuesday. Polls open at 7 a.m. at the Ahern Middle School. They'll close at 8 p.m. You can find out more information about Mr. Ventura at www.jacobventura.com. Follow him on Twitter at Jacob Ventura. Join his Facebook following at JoinJacob2018. I love that. I don't know who came up with that. That's fantastic. You can give him a shout at 508-455-5696 or email him at info@jacobventura.com. Jacob, it's been great having you out here.
Thank you.
I know that you've got some more to say. We could talk for a long time, but once
That's right.
give the viewers the last word.
Yeah, look, I have been traveling the town of Foxboro and the region for about 18 months. I've knocked on thousands of doors in town. If I haven't knocked on your door yet, I probably will in the next few weeks. But I humbly ask for your support and your vote on November 6th. I will be an ally with the governor. I think Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito have done a good job at supporting our communities. That's exactly what I intend to do. Make sure state government runs better for everybody, and then make sure our communities here at home are vibrant, great downtowns, emphasis on public safety, good environment, and then supporting our schools. So I want to thank you.
All right, Jacob Ventura.
Thank you very much.
Republican candidate for state senate for the Norfolk-Bristol district.
That's right. Bristol, Norfolk District.
Bristol, Norfolk. I almost had it right. I live here. You would think I would know. And a reminder again to go vote on November 6th. It's our civic duty. It's also an honor to do it at the Ahern Middle School. On behalf of all of us here at Foxborough Cable Access, this show will be rebroadcast multiple times before the election. You can also check us out at www.fcatv.org or look at it on our YouTube channel. So plenty of ways to get this information again, and we hope you see it and hope you vote. On behalf of all of us here at Foxborough Cable Access, including my two great camera operators, Josh City and Maria Loblins, as well as Paul Beck behind the glass, Lauren Bertar, who puts us on the air, and Alex the intern, who makes all the flying graphics look great. I'm Bob Hickey, your host, and hope to see you again next time, Foxborough. Take care.